I get asked all the time, do webinars still work? Yeah, you bet they do. But let me show you what actually happens when you spend $1,000 on ads to fill one. I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, let's get to it. So first thing I want to cover is the system. So this is a very basic overview of what's going to happen, okay? And then we'll get into some detail in just a moment. Step one is you want to create a super compelling landing page. Make it for mobile first, desktop second, if that makes sense. You want your headline, and a benefit-driven headline is usually the best thing. So you want to have that front and center that is congruent with what they saw in the ad. You also don't need to have a ton of testimonials and all these other things. That doesn't really help your conversion rates on the page, but you can. It's not going to hurt them either, so that's up to you. I'm just trying to help you keep it simple. So now step two is once they register and they hit the thank you page, that's not a confirmation that they signed in. That's your first conversion opportunity. So I'll talk more about that in just a minute. And then the last step is they show up or they don't. But either way, you win. And I want to explain that too and how that's going to work for you. Now, before we go too much further, I want to talk to you about the numbers because this is where most coaches just kind of check out. And that's exactly why they stay broke, because they're not following that or they're exaggerating it one way or another. Let's just say you get 100 registrations for your $1,000 ad spend. That's about $10 a registration. Okay, it might be a little less, might be a little more, something along those lines. About 15% out of those 100, well, they'll show up live. So that's 15 people. Now, it used to be that you could get 30%, 40, 50% to show up live, and that was great. But the difference between then and now is that then people would not stay on very long. Your stick rate for people to watch at the end was pretty low. Now it's a lot higher. So, even though you have a low show up rate, they're more likely to pay attention and to stay all the way to the end. That's the nice thing. Usually you get about 80% of the people who showed up live to stay all the way to the end. So out of those 80 to 90% that stay until the end, you're probably going to get about half of them to book a call. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'm seeing that more and more. So if that's true, you might get 6. I know that's a little less than half of 15, but 6 or 7 book calls. Out of those 6, 60% are going to show up. That's basically more or less about 4 people. 4 people show up, you close half of them, that's 2 new clients. 2 new clients at $3,000 each, that's $6,000. You just made 6 to 1 on your money. That's how this works. And I'm going to kind of go over the part that most coaches are just missing on this strategy entirely. See, most coaches are focused on how many people showed up and how many calls they get, and you should be. You need to know those numbers. You want to pay attention to it. You want to improve. That's fine. But you also want to focus on the other 85 people who did not show up but did register. They're still leads. Maybe they just couldn't make it at that time. There's just a lot of things that could have happened. And they did raise their hand initially, though. Now, you may already be set up to send out a replay and all that, and that's great. But your replays absolutely have to have urgency. So you might tell them when you email them, hey, the replay comes down Friday. You might have a countdown timer on the replay page, whatever it is. But you need to include a call booking link on that page. You want them to be able to go ahead and book a call. And if you do that and you're sending people to the replay, and you can even send your cold traffic to the replay. In other words, you could still promote it organically if you want. You could spend more on ads. Like you could spend, $500 and still promote it with ads just to register for the replay. But that being said, if you want to do that, that's even better because you're going to get more calls booked and ultimately you're going to get more clients. Now, let me just cover a little bit about your offer. It really needs to be $3,000 or higher. There's really no negotiating on that. If you don't have one at $3,000, then make one. Add, more stuff, more features, more benefits to your existing offer. Give them more, whatever it is, but make the offer $3,000 or higher. You can make it work for less. It's just your margin of error is so much smaller. So if you can get to $3,000, do that. Let me just say this. You cannot make the math work at a $500 offer or a $1,000 offer. That is not going to work in this kind of system. So I would not continue to go down that path if that's what you're going to do, or I would only promote it organically and see what you come up with. Now, let's talk just a little bit about the topic, which is crucial. The topic is everything. That's how your conversion rates are going to go. If you have a weak topic, your conversion rates will stink. If you have a great topic, you'll do great. So it really needs to be hyper-focused and hyper-specific, or something that's trending, okay? One of those two. So you don't wanna say something like, how to grow your coaching business, because who cares? Nobody clicks that. It's not specific enough. But if you said how to get 5 new coaching clients without ads and only posting once per day, well, that's specific. And that is a perfect topic right there. That's if you're in the health and fitness business, you might do something like how to use hormone replacement therapy protocols to help perimenopausal women lose weight without cutting calories. Now you're going to get clicks. You're going to get a registration. And you're going to get a room full of people who need what you're selling. So recently, one of my clients, Kim, ran this exact system and signed 22 high-ticket clients from one live training. That's right, 22 out of one. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to do that. I'm just saying it is possible. I also had another client, Emily. She did a completely different type of offer, but she was able to sign 6. If you're getting those numbers, you're probably going to be pretty happy. And sometimes you're going to hit a home run more than all others. Sometimes it may not work out quite as well, but you just have to keep going with it. And neither one of them had some kind of magic offer. They had a specific topic, a solid system, and they stuck with it. And they're good at delivery. They're good at delivering a compelling webinar, and they're good at keeping people on them live. That's what you really have to get good at. Okay, let me tell you what doesn't work. A lot of times coaches will try this just one time. They'll get 8 registrations and decide it doesn't work. That's not a data point. That's panic. That's all that is. Tweak the topic, test the headline, adjust the ad. Don't blow it up and start over, okay? Coaches who fail at this aren't failing because the system is broken. They're failing because they quit before it had time to work. So don't do that. All right, now you've got the system. Now you need the traffic side to get it all dialed in. The ads, the targeting, the spend, all that. And I broke that down step by step on this next video.